All right, so we're diving deep into mental health today.
Sounds good.
We've got some really interesting stuff from samhsa.gov and also from Medical News Today.
Yeah.
And by the end of this, I think you're really going to have a better grasp on mental health, how to recognize those warning signs,
Mm.
and just kind of what's out there to help.
Yeah, I think what's really fascinating is how often mental health is viewed as just the absence of, problems,
Right.
but it's so much more.
It is. It really is. And, we've all heard that World Health Organization definition, right?
Right.
A state of well-being, enabling one to cope with stress, realize abilities, learn and work well, and contribute to their community.
Yeah.
But what does that actually mean for you and me on a daily basis?
Right. It means that good mental health isn't about just surviving. It's about thriving. It's about having the resilience to deal with those inevitable ups and downs that we all face.
Right.
Finding genuine happiness and feeling a sense of purpose.
Yeah, and think about this. Medical News Today pointed out that half of all mental health conditions begin by the age of 14.
Wow.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it?
It does.
Like early awareness and support during those teenage years, could that have changed the trajectory for so many people?
Absolutely. It really highlights the importance of recognizing potential issues early on.
Yeah.
Not just for ourselves, but for younger generations, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of recognizing issues, let's tackle some of these myths surrounding mental health.
Yeah.
How many times have you heard people say, people with mental health issues are dangerous?
Right. Right.
It's just not true.
Yeah, it's a dangerous stereotype that just isn't supported by the facts.
Right.
Data from SAMHSA actually shows that only a tiny fraction of violent crimes are committed by individuals with serious mental disorders.
Right.
Really small.
It's such a harmful misconception, and it's so pervasive.
It is.
It makes you wonder where it comes from. And then another big one is, mental illness. Oh, that's just a sign of weakness or bad parenting.
Right.
Both sources completely debunk this.
Yeah.
Mental health conditions are so complex.
Absolutely.
They arise from a whole web of factors.
It's a combination of things.
It's definitely not a reflection of someone's character or their upbringing.
Absolutely not.
So if it's not just one thing, what are some of those key factors at play here?
Right.
Both SAMHS and Medical News Today emphasize that it's often a combination of things,
Yeah.
like socioeconomic background,
Yeah.
experiences in childhood, and even biological factors.
Exactly. There's no single cause, right?
Right.
It's a complex interplay of different elements.
Yeah, let's start with the socioeconomic factors.
Okay.
Things like poverty,
Yeah.
belonging to marginalized groups, and even your physical location,
Yeah, and SAMHSS points out that living on the outskirts of a big city
Oh, interesting.
can actually increase your risk for mental health issues.
I wouldn't have thought about that.
Yeah, it's probably due to things like limited access to resources and support.
Right, that makes sense.
And then Medical News Today brings up another interesting point.
Okay.
They say that unemployment in your local area
Oh, wow.
can also contribute to poor mental health.
Well, yeah, when you think about the stress and financial strain of job loss.
Exactly, it all ties together.
Yeah, and then there are those factors we can't control.
Yeah.
Like gender, right?
Right, and Medical News Today cited a study that found that being female increases the risk of poor mental health
Wow.
almost 4 times.
That's a huge difference.
It is, and it makes you think about,
Yeah.
societal pressures and expectations
Yeah.
placed on women.
Absolutely, and how that could contribute.
Yeah.
And then there's childhood adversity.
Right.
And, this one really struck me
Yeah.
because both sources talk about how impactful early experiences can be.
Yes.
Things like abuse,
Mm-hmm.
parental loss, separation,
Yeah.
even a parent's illness.
All of those things. It's heartbreaking to think about.
It is.
And SAMHSA specifically mentioned the increased vulnerability to PTSD from these adverse events.
Right, because those early experiences really shape our worldview and our ability to cope with stress later in life.
Absolutely. And then we have biological factors like
Wow.
genetics and family history.
Yeah.
And, SAMHSA makes a crucial point here.
Okay.
Even if mental health conditions run in your family,
Right.
it doesn't mean you're destined to have them.
Exactly.
It just means you might be more predisposed.
Right. It's not a guarantee, but it's something to be aware of.
It is something to be aware of.
And it's not just our genes. Medical News Today highlighted that even underlying physical health problems,
Oh, interesting.
like chronic pain or
Mhm.
diabetes,
Right.
can play a role in mental well-being.
It's all connected, isn't it?
It really is.
Knowing these risk factors can help you understand why certain mental health challenges might be more prevalent. in your life
Right.
or for people you know. Yeah.
And that awareness is really the first step towards seeking support.
Absolutely.
So let's explore some of the most common types of mental health disorders.
Okay.
Remember, we're not giving you like a clinical breakdown here. We're just highlighting some key points.
Yeah, think of it as a glimpse into the diverse world of mental health conditions.
Exactly. So let's start with anxiety disorders,
Okay.
which, as we mentioned earlier, are the most prevalent.
Right.
And they're generally characterized by that feeling of excessive fear or anxiety, often tied to specific objects or situations.
Yeah.
Sam HSA gives some examples,
Okay.
like generalized anxiety disorder, that's GAD, panic disorder, various phobias,
Right.
OCD, and PTSD.
Right.
Each one has its own unique set of symptoms and triggers.
They do.
And medical news today dives a bit deeper into some specific phobias.
Okay.
Think about simple phobias, fears of specific things like spiders or heights, or social phobia, where it's the fear of being judged by others. That becomes debilitating.
Debilitating. Yeah.
You know, what's interesting about phobias is that understanding their patterns can help you identify your own potential triggers.
Right.
And then seek the appropriate help.
Exactly, because knowledge is power.
Exactly. Now let's shift gears to mood disorders,
Okay.
where those significant shifts in mood are the hallmark.
Right.
Classic examples here are major depression, bipolar disorder, and seasonal affective disorder, or SA.
Yes.
Medical news today paints a vivid picture of major depression.
Okay.
It's a constant low mood, losing interest in things you used to enjoy.
Right.
It's like this heavy fog that settles in and makes everything feel gray.
It does.
And then there's bipolar disorder with those extreme swings between the highs of mania and the crushing lows of depression.
Right. The highs and the lows.
And think about SAD, where reduced daylight during certain seasons can really trigger a dip in mood.
Yeah.
It's fascinating how our environment can impact our mental state
It is.
in such a profound way.
Absolutely.
And now let's touch on schizophrenia disorders.
Okay.
This is where things get really complex.
Yeah.
With a wide spectrum of symptoms, including psychosis. And medical news today does a good job of explaining this.
Okay.
You know, people with schizophrenia might experience fragmented thoughts,
Right.
difficulty processing information from their environment,
Yeah.
and they can experience what are called positive and negative symptoms.
Right.
So positive symptoms are things that are added to a person's experience, like delusions or hallucinations,
Right.
while negative symptoms are things that are taken away,
Okay.
like social withdrawal or a lack of emotional expression, which is called flat affect.
Right.
It's important to remember that schizophrenia is a spectrum,
It is.
and the severity of these symptoms can vary greatly from person to person.
Absolutely.
So you've just had a glimpse into some of the most common types of mental health disorders.
Yeah.
And remember, this is just the tip of the iceberg. But before we move on, I want you to consider this.
Okay.
How do these descriptions resonate with your own experiences or those of people you know?
That's a good question to think about.
You know, it's amazing how just having this basic understanding
Yeah.
of different mental health conditions
Right.
can really help us better understand ourselves and the people around us.
Absolutely.
So now let's shift gears a little bit
Okay.
and explore something that both sources really emphasized,
Okay.
that connection
Yeah.
between our mental and physical health.
Right. Because it's a powerful connection.
It is. It's not a one-way street either.
No, not at all.
Poor mental health can really take a toll
It can.
on your physical well-being and vice versa.
Absolutely. Medical news today pointed out how chronic stress
Right.
and conditions like depression and anxiety actually increase your risk for things like heart disease,
Oh, wow.
stroke, even some types of cancer.
It's like a domino effect, isn't it?
It is.
When you're constantly stressed, feeling overwhelmed.
Right? Your body goes into that fight or flight mode.
Right.
And over time,
Yeah.
that chronic stress can lead to inflammation,
Right.
hormonal imbalances,
Yeah.
a weakened immune system.
And then on the flip side,
Yeah.
think about living with a chronic physical condition.
Right.
The pain, the fatigue, the limitations.
Absolutely.
You know, it's completely understandable
Yeah.
why that would impact your mood and energy levels,
Yeah,
your mental well-being overall.
for sure.
It's like this vicious cycle.
It is.
So how do we break free?
Right.
Both sources talk about the importance of this holistic approach to health.
Yeah.
One that considers both our mental and physical needs.
Absolutely. Sam Jose, for example, talks about the importance of self-care practices
Right.
that benefit both our minds and bodies.
Mm-hmm.
Things like exercise, sleep, and a balanced diet.
Those are like the fundamental building blocks
They are.
of well-being.
Yes,
Right.
for sure.
When you nourish your body with healthy food, get enough rest, and move your body regularly. It's not just your physical health that improves.
Right,
Your
yes.
mood lifts, stress reduces,
Yeah,
and even your cognitive function gets a boost.
absolutely. It's like giving your mind and body the fuel they need
Right.
to thrive.
To thrive, I love that.
And speaking of thriving,
Yeah.
I want to bring up a concept that I think is gaining a lot of traction these days.
Okay.
Mental fitness.
I love this idea.
Yeah.
It's about being proactive,
Yes.
about our mental well-being,
Right.
rather than just reacting
Yeah.
when problems arise.
Exactly. It's about building those mental muscles,
Yes.
developing those coping skills.
Yeah.
And that inner resilience that helps us navigate life's inevitable challenges.
Right, because those challenges are going to come,
They are.
no matter what.
It's not about pretending that everything's okay
Right.
or avoiding challenges.
Right.
It's about acknowledging the difficulties,
Yeah.
learning from them, and finding ways to grow and move forward.
Yeah, it's about developing that mental toughness,
Yeah.
that grit that allows us to weather the storms of life.
Yes, exactly.
And the good news is resilience isn't a fixed trait.
That's right.
It's something we can cultivate
We can.
and strengthen over time.
Absolutely. Sam Jose actually highlights some great strategies for building resilience.
Okay.
Things like nurturing strong social connections,
Yeah.
practicing mindfulness and self-care, focusing on our strengths,
Right.
and of course, seeking professional help when needed.
Right. It's like building a toolkit
It is.
of coping mechanisms that we can draw from
Exactly.
when we're faced with those challenges.
And remember, building resilience takes time
Yeah,
and effort.
it does.
It's an ongoing process.
It is.
It's not a one-time fix.
It's about embracing the journey
Yes.
with all its ups and downs, recognizing that setbacks are not failures,
Right.
but opportunities for growth and learning.
Absolutely.
So much of what we've discussed today highlights how interconnected we all are.
We are.
Our mental well-being is influenced by so many factors, personal experiences, societal norms,
Yeah.
even the technological landscape we navigate daily.
Absolutely.
Speaking of technology, I think it's time we explore its impact on mental health,
Okay.
both the good and the bad.
Yeah. It's fascinating how technology has become such a huge part of our lives.
It really has.
It's shaping how we connect and communicate,
Yeah.
and even how we experience the world.
Right.
But it also has this impact on our mental well-being
It does.
in ways we're only starting to grasp, I think.
Yeah, it's like a double-edged sword.
It is.
On one hand, technology has connected us
Right.
in ways that we never thought possible.
Yeah.
It's given us access to information, support networks,
Right.
even mental health resources
Mm-hmm.
right at our fingertips.
Think about teletherapy, for example.
Yeah,
It's really revolutionized access to mental health care,
it has.
making it so much more convenient and accessible. Yeah.
For people who might face barriers to traditional therapy.
For sure. It's a game changer.
It is.
Especially for people in rural areas
Right.
or those with mobility challenges
Mhm.
or even those who just prefer the comfort and privacy of
Right.
their own homes.
Exactly. And let's not forget the role of social media
Right.
in connecting people with similar experiences
Yeah.
and raising awareness about mental health issues.
Absolutely. It can be so powerful
Again,
for finding your tribe,
your people.
a community of people who really understand what you're going through
Right.
without judgment.
Without judgment, exactly.
But we can't ignore the potential downsides,
Right.
the constant information overload,
Yeah.
the pressure to present this perfect online persona,
Oh, yes.
the fear of missing out. It can all take a toll
It can.
on our well-being.
Yeah, and it's so easy to get caught up
It is.
in the highlight reel, right?
Yeah.
Comparing ourselves to others' seemingly perfect lives.
Right. And we forget that everyone struggles,
We do.
even if they don't show it online.
Absolutely. And those constant notifications, the blue light from our devices,
Yeah.
it really disrupts our sleep.
It does.
Fuels anxiety, makes it hard to disconnect and recharge.
Right. It's like we're constantly plugged in, always on,
Yeah.
and our minds never really get a break.
So it's all about finding that balance, right?
It is.
Using technology and social media mindfully,
Yeah.
setting boundaries, prioritizing real-life connections
For sure.
and experiences.
Absolutely. It's about being intentional with our tech use.
Right.
rather than letting it control us.
Rather than letting it control it.
We need to reclaim our time and attention.
Yes.
And remember that there's a whole world out there.
There is.
Beyond the screen.
Beyond the screen, exactly. And speaking of navigating that world,
Yes.
I want to touch on a quality that's really essential for mental well-being, and that is resilience.
Resilience, yes. It's like that inner strength.
It is.
That ability to bounce back from adversity, adapt to change, and keep going even when things get tough.
It's not about, pretending that everything's okay.
No.
Or avoiding challenges.
Right.
It's about acknowledging those difficulties.
Yeah.
Learning from them.
Yeah.
And finding ways to grow and move forward.
Exactly. It's about developing that mental toughness, that grit that allows us to weather the storms of life.
And the good news is resilience isn't a fixed trait.
That's right.
It's something we can cultivate and strengthen over time.
Absolutely. And Sam HSE actually highlighted some strategies for building resilience.
Okay, like what?
Things like nurturing strong social connections.
Okay.
Practicing mindfulness and self-care. Focusing on our strengths. And, of course, seeking professional help when needed.
Yeah, it's like building that toolkit we were talking about earlier of coping mechanisms, right?
Exactly.
That we can draw from.
When we're faced with challenges.
Yeah, and remember, building resilience takes time and effort.
It does.
It's an ongoing process, not a one-time fix.
Right.
It's about embracing the journey.
Yeah.
With all its ups and downs.
The ups and downs.
And recognizing that setbacks, those aren't failures.
Right.
They're opportunities for growth and learning.
Absolutely.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive into mental health,
right.
I want to leave you with a few key takeaways.
Okay, sounds good.
Remember, mental health is a continuum.
It is.
And we all fluctuate along it.
We do.
At different points in our lives.
That's right.
It's okay to not be okay.
It is.
And it's crucial to reach out for support when you need it.
Absolutely.
There's no shame in seeking help.
No, not at all.
In fact, it's a sign of strength.
It is.
And self-awareness.
Yes, and remember, you're not alone in this.
We're not.
We're all in this together.
We are.
Navigating the complexities of life.
Right.
And supporting each other along the way.
I encourage you to continue exploring.
Yes.
The resources we've discussed today.
Absolutely.
Have those open conversations about mental health with your loved ones and prioritize your own well-being.
Yes. Mental health matters.
It does.
It's time to break the stigma.
It is.
Embrace our shared humanity.
Yeah.
And create a world where everyone feels supported. Understood, and empowered to thrive.
To thrive. Thank you for joining us on this journey.
Yes, thank you.
We hope you've gained some valuable insights. And a renewed sense of hope and possibility.
Absolutely.
Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.